went into buying the preserves area from the landowners. The Nature Conservancy and others got private money in there and helped leverage purchases. Some property owners just sold conservation rights. They were able to stay there. They don't develop it, but they got paid to conserve their area. If they don't do a good job of managing the preserves and protecting them from fire, every bit of the money that was invested in public and private funds for these preserve systems is wasted. I don't think our elected officials are paying much attention to this. And instead, they're overreacting with this kind of bull, hurting adjacent homeowners for doing things that frankly should have been done by the government itself. They should have cleared those trees away from the neighborhoods and done a better job of managing the preserves so they help the species. So we got the worst of both worlds going on right now. But if you're considering buying a home next door and you see there's cameras out there spying on the backyard and this ugly fence next door, you're not as interested in buying that home next door.
The precautionary principle states that if an action or policy has a suspected risk of causing harm to the public or to the environment, in the absence of scientific consensus that the action or policy is harmful, the burden of proof that is not harmful falls on those taking the action. Basically, guilty before proven innocent. The European Union deems this principle an actual law, while the United States has labeled it a precautionary approach and uses it to create policy. The genesis of Agenda 21 begins with the Brundtland Commission's Our Common Future, reported to the United Nations in 1987. This report defined the term sustainable development, stated as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. In order to define what these needs of the present are and what to implement in order to scale down daily aspects of human activity, Maurice Strong developed Agenda 21 and presented it at the Rio Earth Summit in 1992.
Climate change affects the very future of life on Earth. We have to remember that life as we know it on Earth has only existed for a very small portion of the Earth's history, and within very narrow parameters. And we are changing those parameters. So life is actually in danger.
You'll hear Maurice Strong on 2 occasions introduce Lord Rothschild. And Lord Rothschild comes on and basically advocates for another United Nations fund to be set up, another special bank to deal with the environment, one in many that's already there. And Rothschild, of course, you find in the clip, this bank they want to set up, funded by our tax money as penalties against the environment, will go through Rothschild's private bank, their family bank in Switzerland, so he'll be in charge of it. This multi-trillionaire doesn't need money, but here he is handling everyone else's money in the forms of penalization against the environment.
What is the new paradigm? We call it sustainable development.
Sustainable development.
Yeah, that's really
right.
economic development that is carried out in a manner that creates a positive synthesis between the economic, the social, and the environmental dimensions.
Long term.
Yes, and therefore, it isn't a goal in itself. It's a pathway.
Yes.
It's a means to a sustainable, secure, and equitable future for humankind. All these conditions we're talking about will only be dealt with through a through a process by which we try to create the policy structure that supports people in their struggle for a better life.
More recently, just before the Copenhagen round of the negotiations to establish a world government treaty, a treaty draft was produced by the bureaucracy that acts as the secretariat of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was first put into place at the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. Now, this Framework Convention on Climate Change, to which some 192 countries are now subscribers, has as its avowed intention the establishment again of a supranational body regulated by a treaty which will bind all those 192 member governments, including the United States, including the United Kingdom. And the intention is that that body will have unlimited powers of taxation, unlimited powers of regulation, not only in the environmental field, but also in the economic field generally. And the treaty draft of September the 15th last year, which proposed the establishment of this world government, actually contained the word government used in that global context for the first time in any seriously contemplated international treaty. And I reveal that in the 186 pages of this world government treaty, not once did the words election, democracy, ballot, or vote occur in any context.
The 4 sections of 40 chapters of Agenda 21 leave no stone unturned when it comes to absolute control of humanity. It places nature above mankind and calls for an end to national sovereignty, the abolition of private property, the restructuring of the family, and restrictions on transportation and individual opportunity. This map clearly shows the human settlement zones according to Agenda 21 planned for the near future. Red is off limits, yellow is highly regulated, and green is normal use. President Clinton issued Executive Order number 12852, creating the President's Council on Sustainable Development. The PCSD has eroded the foundation of U.S. public policy, according to the Master Plan of the United Nations, ever since.
We are talking about a globalist plan that remakes your city to a specific model. This is not only in the United States, it's all across the United States and all across the world. And you'll see these plans. They are, they're called One Bay Area. They're called 4 States, One Vision. They often have the word vision in them, or they might be your city 2050 or your city 2035. They're planning out to 2050. This is the planning, you know, what we're looking at is a planning revolution here. And it's a totalitarian plan that they're implementing. I want to let people know that totalitarian plans all share, every totalitarian plan, whether it was under Stalin or Hitler or Mao, they all share the same elements. And you will recognize it here in your country, wherever you live. You'll see that there's being a takeover and a total control of all land use, of your educational system, of means of production, all of your resources, okay? Also, you'll see it's all for the common good. It's all for the fatherland. It's all for the homeland. It's all for everyone's good, right? The individual will lose against this. You see the scarcity mentality. Oh, there's not enough. You have to restrict yourself. You have to conserve. You know, am I a pig? Do I want to use everything up? No, but we're talking about, this is a totalitarian design.
Well, this is about them controlling who they dole it out to. This is about them setting the standards, your light bulb, your toilet, your parking space, your roads, destroying your roads, and they admit to shut you down to make you poor so they can control you. They all brag about it.
It took a good man's life to reveal the true local Agenda 21 intentions implemented in Roswell, Georgia. City Council and City of Roswell Code Enforcement had identified Andrew Wirtis's property as a conservation area or green space in 2003. In 2008, they began the bloodthirsty plan to illegally steal the land right out from underneath him and caused his premature death through unjust bullying and by violating city code ordinances.
So let's roll that timeline real quick, and you could just kind of go over it. And I mean, it's really, it's a sad situation. Here's a guy raising chickens.
A backyard chicken farmer, a car mechanic. This began several years ago. This has been going on, from December 2008. You can see there's our Friday Fright Night city code enforcer there on the
Vicky the Hut Barkley.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Anyway, this goes on. There were some people in the city who tried to help him out. Others
the
said
mayor
no.
seemed to want to help him out.
The mayor tried to help him. They changed the rules on him to try to criminalize his backyard chickens after the fact without allowing him to be grandfathered in. They caused his property to be flooded because they refused to maintain a culvert that then flooded his property.
In Austin, Texas, the city council set their sights on a prized piece of land in South Austin. FEMA rewrote the floodplain map to include this neighborhood. The The residents were quickly bought out with federal grants supplemented with bond money and their homes demolished. FEMA is rewriting floodplain maps all over the country and extorting money from property owners by making them purchase flood insurance.
Well, we had an article in the paper the other day, David, that stated the fact that the National Marine Fisheries Service, which is part of NOAA, that's directly linked to EPA, wants to put 500-foot buffers on all the waterways in the state of Washington for pesticide herbicide application. They're not going to take the land away, they're just not going to allow us to farm the land. And if they do that, 61% of our ground will be out of production in the state of Washington.
And look what we got now. We have a White House Rural Council. Are you nervous about this?
Sure, and anybody that's in rural America should be worried about this.
Why the FCC and why so many important bigwigs from the White House?
Give me a break. These people are not going to be sitting around at some conspiracy theory around a table plotting the takeover of the heartland. If you look at what this council does...
Then what's it for? Hang on, guys. What's it for then? I mean, really, it's overreaching. It's an overreach. I have a hunch that people in the heartland are going, we're doing just fine, thank you very much. Keep your grimy hands off us.
The natural world in which man lives and on which he depends is indeed deteriorating, is being destroyed in many instances at a rate that is accelerating and that can only continue to accelerate unless we begin to control the activities that are having this destructive impact. Now, whether we are pessimistic or optimistic depends really on what we think about the nature of man. Whether we really believe that man, in light of this evidence, is going to be wise enough and enlightened enough to subject himself to this kind of discipline and control.
Darren McBreen, InfoWars Nightly News.